there you are. You arrived the way you always do, quietly, without spectacle, without demanding to be seen. And that alone already tells me something about you. You've spent a long time believing this story was about other people, their choices, their absence, their failure to understand you, their words that stayed lodged in your chest longer than they ever stayed in their mouths. But listen closely now. This was never about them. It only felt that way because pain is loud when it first enters the room. It points outward before it turns inward. It names faces before it names truths. And you, like anyone trying to survive, followed the noise instead of the signal. You replayed moments, conversations, looks that lingered too long or didn't linger at all. You wondered what you could have said differently, what version of yourself might have been easier to love, easier to keep, easier to choose, and all the while, something deeper waited patiently beneath the questioning, something that already knew. You already knew this wasn't really about them leaving, disappointing you, overlooking you, or failing to meet you where you stood. That was just the surface wound, the one visible enough to explain. The deeper wound was quieter. It was the moment you abandoned yourself to stay connected, the moment you shrank your truth to preserve belonging, the moment you swallowed instinct for harmony, the moment you told yourself, this is fine, while something inside you slowly went numb. You didn't notice it happening at first. No one ever does. Self-betrayal rarely arrives as drama. It arrives as compromise, as patience stretched too far, as understanding offered at your own expense, as love given without being mirrored. And still, you kept believing it was about them, because that was easier than facing the truth that unsettled you most. You were living out of alignment, not because you were weak, not because you didn't know better, but because survival taught you how to adapt faster than it taught you how to honor yourself. You learned early that being perceptive meant being careful, that sensitivity required restraint, that depth needed translation. You learned how to read the room before reading your own body, how to anticipate reactions before naming your needs. So when things broke, when connections thinned, when distance grew where closeness once lived, you blamed the visible players. You named their flaws, their timing, their limitations. But the ache remained, because the ache wasn't asking for justice. It was asking for truth, and the truth, soft, unrelenting, impossible to unhear, was this. You were tired of disappearing inside your own life. That exhaustion wasn't emotional weakness. It was wisdom reaching its limit. It was the part of you that could no longer tolerate pretending that endurance was love, that silence was peace, that loyalty meant self-erasure. This was never about them not seeing you. It was about you finally seeing yourself, seeing how often you accepted less than resonance, seeing how often you confused familiarity with safety, seeing how often you waited to be chosen instead of choosing alignment. And with that seeing came grief. Not grief for what they did or didn't do, but grief for how long you postponed yourself, for how long you mistook patience for destiny, for how long you believed that if you just explained better, loved harder, stayed quieter, everything would resolve. But life doesn't resolve around explanations. It resolves around honesty. The moment you stopped asking why they couldn't meet you, something shifted. The moment you asked why you kept staying where you weren't met, the narrative collapsed. Not violently, cleanly. You didn't need closure from them. You needed coherence within yourself. You didn't need their acknowledgement. You needed your own permission. Permission to trust what your body already knew. Permission to let discomfort guide you instead of silence it. Permission to walk away from what required you to abandon your center. And when you did, when you finally stopped orienting your worth around their behavior, the weight lifted. Not because everything became easy, but because everything became true. This was never about them. It was about returning to yourself without apology. About choosing integrity over attachment. About realizing that love is not proven by how much you can endure, but by how deeply you can remain yourself. And now, as you stand here, breathing differently, standing straighter, no longer chasing explanations, you can feel it. The quiet relief of alignment, the calm of no longer arguing with your intuition, the peace of knowing that what you lost was never meant to be carried forward. You didn't fail, you remembered, and that was the point all along.